option to other small ones. And the small ones. Yes, for you too. This is the height of your stuff.
Chairman, we're going live.
Yes, good morning, sorry. Good morning to everyone here present. Honorable Lennox Linton, Leader of the Opposition, Parliamentary Representative for the Marigot constituency, and Party Leader, other members of Parliament here present, United Workers' Party colleagues, members of the media, listeners to Q95 on other media platforms, ladies and gentlemen, once more good morning. My name is Isaac Baptist, for those of you who don't know, President of the United Workers' Party. Today's press conference is to speak to current issues negatively impacting good governance and a threat to our democracy here in Dominica. More particularly, the recent judgment of the Caribbean Court of Justice referenced Roosevelt Skerritt and other members of the Dominica Labour Party who contested the 2014 general elections versus Antoine Defoe, now deceased, Edincourt St. Val, and Mervyn John Baptist. We are witnessing a shameless and relentless attempt by the accused Dominica Labour Party candidates of the 2014 general election, led by our Prime Minister, to encroach and intimidate members of the judiciary, more particularly the Director of Public Prosecution and the Attorney General, who the Prime Minister has a say in their appointment, to abut and discontinue the matter that the CCJ has comprehensively dealt with an overwhelming majority decision. The United Workers' Party and the people of Dominica in general has great interest in this matter. It is commonly referred to as public interest. I will now call on the Leader of the Opposition and our party leader to speak to the nation regarding our concerns and our demands.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members of the media, my colleagues in the leadership of the United Workers' Party, the people of Dominica at home and abroad. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, pay attention. There is racketeering, organized crime taking place in the Labor Division and other departments of government. 6 years ago, according to then Labor Commissioner Matthew LeBlanc, on the 19th of December 2014, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt informed him that he, the Prime Minister, had, quote, information and evidence that staff members of the Division of Immigration and Labor are involved in racketeering of visas, work permits, end of quote. The Prime Minister is said to have told the Labor Commissioner that while he could investigate and have persons arrested, he was giving LeBlanc, quote, the chance to investigate and fix it, end of quote. Now we see pictures circulating on social media of a huge amount of cash, US cash, allegedly recovered from the home of one of the officers of the Department of Labor. And the question circulating in the public, what is going to be done about it? There's racketeering in the Ministry of Agriculture and other ministries of government. There is racketeering in the award of diplomatic passports to the Commonwealth of Dominica. There is racketeering in the citizenship by investment program to the extent that billions of dollars from the sale of Dominican passports are being unlawfully held outside of the country's consolidated fund and under the private control of the Prime Minister and foreign friends. Racketeering has poisoned our electoral process to the detriment of free and fair elections of integrity as the backbone of our democracy in Dominica. These are matters for law enforcement. But typically law enforcement does nothing, leaving a great burden on the ordinary citizens to file private complaints seeking justice in the criminal justice system of Dominica. And that is what is expected of we the people. In a 2009 case of the OECS Court of Appeal, Chief Justice Janice Pereira stated in the ruling, quote, "The retention of the right of a private person to bring a criminal prosecution is an important safety net where those vested with the authority to bring and conduct a criminal prosecution decline to do so without just cause." We have numerous examples of the police authority in Dominica, the law enforcement of the land, failing, refusing to bring and conduct criminal prosecutions, declining to do their jobs without just cause. And Justice of Appeal Baptiste, the brother of the immediate past DPP, in that same judgment noted, and I quote again, "A decision to prosecute or not to prosecute should not be informed by political considerations or other undue or improper influence or pressure." Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the United Workers' Party calls on Roosevelt Skerrit and the other criminally accused members of the Dominica Labour Party to obey the rule of law, honor the constitutional provisions for equality before the law, and withdraw immediately from the attack on the orderly operation of the criminal justice system. The Labour Party members summoned to court on the criminal charge of treating, following complaints filed by Antoine Defoe, deceased, Edincott Senval, and Mervyn John Baptiste, have been engineering abusive delays in the court process that have so far denied justice in this important public interest matter for 6 years. Still, the delays to deny justice continue uninterrupted in a country where the Constitution provides that every person charged with a criminal offense shall be afforded a fair hearing within a reasonable time by an independent and impartial court established by law. The abuse of the court process by the DLP members who believe the rule of law exists to shield them from sanction for criminal conduct and punish everybody else is a clear and present danger to the well-being of our democracy that requires urgent corrective action. Call the case. Let it be heard. Let it be determined in obedience to the Constitution and the rule of law. First, they brought the district magistrate and the director of public prosecution before the High Court in an application for judicial review to set aside the magistrate's decision to summon them to court and thereby discontinue the criminal case against them. They argued that as members of Parliament, the constitutional principle of equality before the law did not apply to them, and complaints for criminal election offenses could not be filed against them. Could not be filed against them outside of the 21-day period following general elections. They also claimed that the complaints were bad in law and abuse of the court process. The district magistrate and the director of public prosecutions, the defendants in this matter, along with Defoe, Senval, and John Baptiste, who were allowed by the court as interveners because of their significant interest, disagreed. After 3 years, the High Court judge ruled in favor of the criminally accused DLP members and quashed the summonses. The High Court ruling against the district magistrate and the DPP was appealed to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court by the interveners. In a majority decision, the appeal court ruled that the criminal complaints were properly before the magistrate and the summonses were reinstated. The criminally accused DLP members then appealed that ruling to the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ. On March 9th, 2021, the CCJ, Dominica's final appellate court, ruled that the Elections Act of Dominica created a two-pronged punitive approach aimed at eliminating corrupt electoral practices. First, the imposition of criminal consequences, and second, the unseating of unsuccessful candidates. The CCJ also rejected the submission from the DLP candidates that as members of parliament they are immune from the summary prosecution process of the criminal law that applies to ordinary citizens. According to the ruling, quote, such an interpretation offended the principles of equality before the law and the rule of law, which were deeply embedded in the Constitution. The CCJ dismissed the appeal, thereby advising the district magistrate and the DPP, the original defendants, that the criminal complaints for treating against DLP members were properly before the criminal jurisdiction of the court. In other words, contrary to the position of the DLP members, the criminal complaints against them should be heard and determined. The CCJ ruling states: 1. The complaints filed by the respondents and the summonses issued by the magistrate court are reinstated. 2. The chief magistrate shall proceed to assign a magistrate to hear the complaints. That ruling was on the 9th of this month. 21 days have gone by, and the chief magistrate is yet to obey the order of the CCJ. On March 24th, 2021, having exhausted court action to defeat the criminal complaints against them without trial, the DLP members instruct their attorneys to write to the DPP demanding discontinuation. This is a most dangerous assault on the office of DPP that the Constitution of Dominica holds independently responsible for all criminal proceedings according to the principles of equality before the law, fairness, and freedom from political and other undesirable influences. There is absolutely no legal, no rational, no proper, no moral, or no public interest purpose for the Director of Public Prosecution, who the DLP members brought to court as a defendant in their 2015 judicial review application, to accept this highly irregular request to discontinue the very case that Dominica's final appellate court has ordered to trial. In the face of that CCJ order to hear and determine the matter, the DLP members represent that the DPP needs to intervene, quote, intervene to prevent a manifest abuse of the court's process, end of quote. This claim that the order of the CCJ is facilitating an abuse of the court's process is extremely offensive and, in our view, contemptuous of the Constitution and the country's final appellate court. The nation recalls Roosevelt Skerritt's cynical attempt, while he was before the court on the criminal charge of treating, to legitimize the criminal election offenses of bribery and treating through amendments to our electoral laws. The nation also recalls that while he was before the court with the Integrity Commission, Roosevelt Skerritt used the DLP majority in Parliament to change the Integrity in Public Office Act, as a result of which the newly constituted Integrity Commission immediately discontinued the investigation of complaints against him for corrupt conduct in public office. The request by DLP lawyer Lennox Lawrence, a sitting member of the Electoral Commission, for the DPP to block the case is yet another act of lawlessness by the DLP regime. It underlines the extent to which the criminally accused DLP members have hoisted themselves above the people and the rule of law on the dictate that no law, no constitution, will prevent them from doing whatever they want, however they want, in the abuse of public office for private gain. It is time for the judicial and law enforcement officers of the state to restore sanity in our justice system and reverse this worsening crisis of governance. Call the case. Let justice come down like a river, let righteousness flow like a mighty stream. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, you may have noticed that the Ministry of National Security and Home Affairs is seeking to fill the post of Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, and accordingly, it has invited attorneys at law with at least 7 years practice in the criminal court to apply for the position on contract for 1 year. In case you missed it, the advertisement is on DNO, that's where I read it. The online media advertisement states, quote, under the supervision of the Attorney General, the Director of Public Prosecution shall be responsible for conducting prosecutions for the government of Dominica in order to exercise the powers and control of the Director of Public Prosecutions under the Commonwealth of Dominica Constitution Order 1978, Section 72, subsection 2. The successful candidate is required to have knowledge of the laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica. The Constitution is the supreme law of Dominica. This DPP recruitment plan, as advertised, highlights two clear intentions to violate the Constitution. Number one, the appointment of a DPP on contract for 1 year is a violation of the Constitution. Section 88(1) of the Constitution states, quote, the Director of Public Prosecution shall be appointed by the President acting in accordance with the advice of the Public Service Commission after consultation with the Prime Minister. Section 88(6) says, subject to the provision of subsection 7 of this section, the Director of Public Prosecution shall vacate his office when he attains the prescribed age. And Section 88(7) says, a person holding the office of Director of Public Prosecutions may be removed from office only for inability to exercise the functions of his office, whether arising from infirmity of body or mind or any other cause, or for misbehavior, and shall not be removed except in accordance with the provisions of this section. The Constitution endows the Director of Public Prosecution with independence and security of tenure to ensure that the criminal justice system operates on the principle of equality before the law and is free from political and other improper influences. Based on a February 2000 ruling of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in the matter of the Attorney General of Grenada versus the Grenada Bar Association, it is now settled law in this jurisdiction that a contractual appointment to the post of Director of Public Prosecutions, which limits the term of appointment for duration falling short of the prescribed retirement age, is unconstitutional. A contract granting the DPP tenure for a defined period that is incompatible with the constitutional provisions is therefore null, void, and of no effect. According to then Chief Justice Sir Dennis Byron, quote, "The holder of the office of Director of Public Prosecutions cannot be removed on any ground other than inability or misbehavior before he attains the prescribed age." This leads inevitably to the ruling that he cannot be removed on the basis of the effluxion of time, end of quote. Number two, the Director of Public Prosecutions working under the supervision of the Attorney General is a violation of the Constitution. Section 72(2) of the Constitution states, "The Director of Public Prosecution shall have the power in any case in which he considered it desirable so to do, A, to institute and undertake criminal proceedings against any person before any court of law other than a court-martial in respect of any offense alleged to have been committed by that person. B, to take over and continue any such criminal proceedings that have been initiated or undertaken by any other person or authority. And C, to discontinue at any stage before judgment is delivered any such criminal proceedings instituted or undertaken by himself or any person, other person or authority." Section 72(6) of the Constitution provides that in the exercise of the powers vested in him by subsection 2 of this section, the Director of Public Prosecutions shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority, provided that the powers vested in him by paragraph C of subsection 2 shall be exercised by him in accordance with such general or specific directions, if any, as the Attorney General may give. The Constitution provides that the Director of Public Prosecutions functions as an independent servant of the state, responsible for the conduct of criminal proceedings, who is only required to entertain general or specific direction from the Attorney General in the discontinuation of criminal proceedings. The assignment of a DPP to work under the supervision of the Attorney General is therefore a violation of the Constitution. There is absolutely no provision in the Constitution for the Attorney General to give directions to the DPP in the discharge of his constitutionally authorized responsibilities, with one exception, and one exception only, which is the discontinuation of criminal proceedings. So, what is the plan? This is a ministry of government responsible for legal affairs, facilitating the appointment of a legal officer with overall responsibility for public prosecutions. The constitutional provisions and the requirements are clear. Yet, the ministry responsible for legal affairs sets up for an appointment in breach of the constitutional rule of law. Really? No, not really. The intention is clear. The ministry's DPP recruitment plan betrays the sinister plot of the Roosevelt-Skerrit regime to appoint a DPP on a short-term contract for the perverse purpose of discontinuing the criminal proceedings against himself and others for the election offense of treating, which the Caribbean Court of Justice has ordered to trial. That's all this appointment of the DPP on a short-term contract is all about. Because the Attorney General and the other lawyers and the ministers of government know very well that what they're doing is unconstitutional. But they're creating a situation, an avenue through which somebody can be brought in for a short term to deal expressly and exclusively with this matter of discontinuing the treating cases against Mr. Skerritt and others from the 2014 election. This is unacceptable, and we ask the media to keep your eyes open. Report the truth, report the facts. Watch to see who is going to take this appointment or who is going to be selected for the short-term, unlawful, unconstitutional, short-term engagement by the Skerritt administration for the post of Director of Public Prosecution. We'll take your questions.
Mr. Linton,
Hold on.
all right, Carol John Baptist. Mr. Linton, you made reference to the issue of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and you extensively quoted rulings by various courts that we are well aware of. A few years ago, when Ms. Baptist took up the position, she, from what we know, she was offered a contract, and she decided that that is unconstitutional. We're hearing lots of things. What do you all intend to do as it relates to that situation? Because it's clear from what we are gathering, the situation is unconstitutional. Because the Section 88(1), as you quite rightly said, it's clear as it relates to the appointment of a Director of Public Prosecution, which is a constitutional position. You, as the opposition, what do you all intend to do? Because it's a clear breach of the Constitution of Dominica.
We clearly oppose the unconstitutional appointment of Director of Public Prosecution because of all the negative implications associated with that. We are doing what we consider to be the responsible thing at this moment, and that is bring this matter to public attention, to warn the public as to what is about to happen. Because the Labour Party has clearly indicated its intention in this DPP recruitment plan. We do not agree with it. We think it should be withdrawn. But as to what specifically the opposition will do about it, should it happen, let's give it a chance not to happen first before we go down that road.
Okay, my question would be more, I believe that the topic on the DPP, it's already settled. Now my question would be on the recent news. I'm going to switch gears and going to our whole climate, the pronouncement that we are the first climate resilient nation. And recently we saw the news that two of our regional leaders from Antigua, I believe, and St. Vincent, I can't remember the other country, they were selected by the Joe Biden administration to join that summit of world leaders, but Dominica has not been added to that list. What is the United Workers' Party's view on such announcement? Do you believe that Dominica is doing enough to gain our rightful place as the first climate resilient nation?
The talk of Dominica becoming the first climate resilient country in the world has always been just that, talk. You'll recall that one of the key instruments that was said to be important in bringing us to that status of first climate resilient country in the world was an organization called CREED, the Climate Resilient Executing Agency of Dominica. Do you remember that institution? It came into being by an act of parliament in 2018. So 2 years have already gone by. More than 2 years have gone by. And has the media heard anything about CREED, the Climate Resilient Executing Agency of Dominica, apart from the fact that a number of highly paid employees came in from overseas? Do you know what they're doing? I'm in the Parliament of Dominica, to whom CREED is supposed to report every 6 months. In 2 years, I have not seen a single report. So I don't know what's happening on this agenda of Dominica becoming the first climate resilient country. One of the responsibilities of CREED was to look over the infrastructure development program of Dominica to ensure that it fitted the requirements of climate resilience and so on. But in recent years, we have had a number of infrastructure projects, mainly those funded through the Citizenship by Investment program, that have not been under the oversight of the CREED. So it's probably that not only we, a few of us in Dominica, are aware of these things, it's possible that the outside world is watching Dominica as well, and is aware of the behavior of the government, and has decided when they're talking climate resilience, Dominica is not a serious player. And that may well be the reason behind the fact that Dominica was not invited. I can only surmise, because I don't know, I have not spoken to anybody about this, but to the extent that it's a concern for you and other members of the media, it could well be that the government is talking a lot but not being taken seriously on issues of climate resilience.
Yeah, one question. In regards to, back to the DPP and the recent CCJ ruling, have you noticed any other actions or aggressive actions being taken by the Dominica Bar Association to speak on the matter, especially as you just revealed that they are now in the process of trying to get under the DPP to deal with that situation? What are your views or what are your observations on the Bar Association since the ruling and now recently the intentional acquiring of the DPP?
I have not heard anything from the Bar Association on this matter, and frankly I don't expect to hear anything from the Bar Association on this matter. The Bar Association traditionally, for a number of years now, has only spoken when Anthony Estefan has directed it to speak. That's all. And the Bar Association has spoken when Anthony Estefan feels that Lennox Linton should not open his mouth on any legal matter because he's not a lawyer, and anything he says in criticism of a judge's ruling is contemptuous of the court. That's the only time I've heard any statement from the Bar Association. So I'm not expecting to hear anything from them having regard to who is at the helm of the Dominica Bar Association. I, however, have heard the Committee of Concerned Lawyers express an interest in this matter, and it is possible that the public may be hearing from them. They have spoken about it on their radio program, so we have heard some voices and some attempts to educate the people of Dominica as to the issues arising out of this whole matter.
Yeah. One last question in regards to Cara Shillingford, the one who's basically recently been on the negative backlash on the DLP administration supporters side. Do you have any, I guess, words of advice or caution to others who feel that someone who is doing their job should face such negative media or criticism for doing clearly what you just stated, following constitutional acts?
Cara Shillingford is a young attorney in Dominica who has dared to take on issues of justice that matter to the people of Dominica, more so than most other lawyers in the country. And she needs to be commended for that. When you look at the ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice on this matter of the treating complaints that were brought against Roosevelt Square and others, the ruling of both courts suggests that Cara Shillingford, the argument she brought before the court were compelling, were skillful on the issues that the court was asked to consider. In the CCJ, the counsel for the DLP members was told that he relied on case law, jurisprudence, matters that are supposed to provide precedents for the case he was arguing before the court. And the CCJ told him none of the cases that you brought were relevant to the matter that the court was considering. The CCJ also told him that the 7 constitutional arguments raised in the High Court in the judicial review were not properly before the court. Do you understand the severity of the implications of that? This is a senior counsel who the court tells, you do not know the proper procedure to bring a constitutional matter before the court. Wheel and come again. But on behalf of that attorney, ministers of government are doing their best to denigrate, to dehumanize, to criticize the young attorney whose work was recognized and upheld, work on behalf of clients was recognized and upheld at the Caribbean Court of Appeal and at the Caribbean Court of Justice. Any minister of government finding themselves in the disgraceful situation of going personally after Cara Shillingford should resign. They have no place in the governance of Dominica, because Dominica is for all of us. Lawyers represent clients. That's a right that we have under the Constitution. Representation in matters where you're brought before the court. And Cara is being crucified for deciding that she will accept a request from persons who want to bring a criminal complaint against members of the DLP. She's been criticized for accepting their request, going to court on their behalf, and triumphing at the highest level of the regional court. That is what she's been criticized for. And it's a shame. It's a disgrace. And the people who are shouting themselves hoarse about not apologizing and so on, I don't know whether there's any shred of decency left or any shred of moral compass left in this Dominica Labour Party. This is really and truly a Pampalam government.
Mr. Linton, can you tell us your views on Dominica recruiting the assistance of CARICOM to deal with the death of the young man on the Carnival holidays? Can you tell us your
Dominica's what?
Recruiting the assistance of CARICOM to investigate the death of the young man.
That decision has been taken. The CARICOM Impacts Group and their officials, investigators are in Dominica. So we wait to hear what the report will say, but it is over 40 days since Kerwin Prosper died in police custody. And the family and the members of the community, the members of the people of Dominica at large are waiting for closure in this matter. They want justice to be done. And the police have been hesitant to say anything. We heard of this impacts investigation. And so we wait for the outcome of the investigation. But the treatment that police, the harassment, the brutality that police is meting out to ordinary citizens who come under their custody or whom they come into contact with in the course of even public meetings or a simple demonstration, is just totally and absolutely unacceptable. The police continues to behave more like a goon squad for the Prime Minister than a law enforcement body for the state of Dominica. And they need to review carefully where they are, what they've been doing, and change course going forward, because this is not going to end well. This police constant attack on and brutality against citizens of Dominica is not going to end well.
And finally, my final question would be on the delegates conference. We know that you guys mentioned that it will be held in the first quarter of 2021. We know that time is approaching and we have COVID. Can you just bring us up to speed as to when the delegates conference?
The delegates conference of the United Workers' Party will be held as provided for in the Constitution in 2021 in November of this year. We had some issues with the conference last year because of COVID and so on. We tried to move last year's conference to the early part of this year just to maintain our continuity, the continuity of our governance structures and so on. But having regard to the same COVID issues and the difficulties of assembling large gatherings and so on, we have decided to move the delegates conference to November. So we would not have had a delegates conference last year, which happens, and we would be having it this year. The date that is required to be held, as far as our Constitution is concerned, is November, and hopefully we'll be able to stick to that. Thank you. Thank you very much.